You're listening to Game Misconduct, and now your hosts, two men who are no stranger to the sin bin, Stephen James and Alex Soberman.
All right, folks, Game Misconduct here on 96.3 The Hive. I'm Stephen James, joined with Alex Soberman, and we have a slam banger of a show. What's going on, Alex?
Not much. There's been a... My God, did you see that Vikings game, the end of that game last night?
We saw a lot of different things, especially my cholesterol going up, down, left, right, and sideways. But today we're going to get into a little bit of the NHL.
Yes.
My favorite sport.
Oh, yeah. Definitely your favorite. I know it's your favorite. I have come to love it more and more, and also love to hate it.
Love to hate it because, of course, you're an Islanders fan, which, by the way, congratulations. It appears that now the New York Islanders will be moving back to Long Island.
As soon as we get those shovels in the ground, though.
Which you're still waiting for, I'm sure.
The check's in the mail, guys.
Check's in the mail. But today we're going to be focusing on the NHL players and NHL owners at odds over the league's decision not to send their athletes to South Korea for the 2018 Winter Olympics. This will be the first time since 1994 games where the NHL has not been represented. First and foremost, Alex, do we even care?
I personally really enjoy it. It's really the only time where I watch the NHL, but I don't really watch like the World Cup of hockey or the other international,
the World Juniors,
or any. Not you get more into it than I do, but I've always liked watching Olympic hockey competition. Men's and women's, by the way.
Yeah, and the women's program has they obviously now have the NWHL, so now they have a pro team, but it's not obviously not on the level of the NHL. But the women's ice hockey program, at least on the international level, has always been a kind of a step ahead of the men's. So
right.
They aren't affected by that.
This is one of those things where the context of it. It's a relatively the NHL participating is relatively recent in terms of how long the Olympics have been going on, because the Olympics opened their doors to it used to just be amateur athletes.
Yes,
and then they decided
in '88.
Was when they changed the rule. They were going to open it up to all athletes. So in 1992, you saw that the first real step of that was the NBA Dream Team, the USA Dream Team, which was mostly all NBA. But you had Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson and all these guys playing together, which you would only really see in an all-star game, and then even then, if it's East-West, you don't see it that much. So you had this awesome like Team USA that just like crushed the entire rest of the world, but the money and goodwill that the NBA got out of it was astounding, and so
other leagues looked and they
Gary
saw
Bettman saw dollar signs in his eyes and was like, this may not be hockey's just starting to, the Iron Curtain had just fallen a few years earlier. You're now seeing more
international players moving
Eastern
over.
Bloc players from Russia, Poland,
all those other countries that fell under the Iron Curtain.
Now they're coming. They want to play in the NHL, so they figured that Gary Bettman's saying, okay, so he was able to convince the other owners to do it on the fact that the International Olympic Committee and the International Hockey Federation kind of came together and said, okay, could be good for everybody. The IOC and the International Hockey Federation said, okay, the IOC's going to...
Well, they had to strike the deal. That's one of the biggest things, the reasons why the NHL is not sending their players there, because the IOC used to pay, and this was the only league that they did. They paid for the insurance for the athletes, the travel for the athletes, the accommodation for the athletes, which they did for no other league.
No, not for the NBA, not for anything. The difference is the insurance being the biggest hurdle, because you're doing this in the middle of a league season.
Yes, which is different when it comes to basketball.
Basketball's
it's in the middle of the summer. It's in the off season, so you don't have any risk there. Owners feel less obligated, because if you have a guy like in your case for your team, Jonathan Tavares in 2014's Winter Games in Sochi goes down with an injury. He was the team's leading scorer. He accounted for 40% of the Islanders' points. An owner's not getting reimbursed that in any way, shape, or form.
Exactly. So it's one of those things where it had to be the perfect storm. Now, Bettman originally went to the IOC and was like, hey, what if we did it during the Summer Olympics? They laughed at him, but...
Ice in the summer? What are we going to do?
But it would have made sense, being that because basketball and hockey are on the same schedule. So
during the season, too, technically.
It wouldn't have interrupted the NHL had they did it during the summer games. But being that they're like, no, that's not gonna play.
We need all that space for the floor exercise.
Exactly, and the gymnastics. Oh God, we can't cut anything out of that.
Can't live with it. I mean, 64 floor exercises. Come on.
Yeah, and you can do 62 of them. I heard.
62. Yep. It's like Ben and Jerry's or Baskin Robbins. It's all
31
kinds of flavors of flips. Yeah. 62 flavors of flips.
Yeah. But right now, so you have now the IOC basically, they've been in kind of a cash crunch in recent years. The Olympics are not
as we've seen before, as we've discussed with all of that alleged embezzlement.
Yeah, well, it's not as bad as FIFA.
That's true.
But still, the embezzlement,
allegedly,
yeah, the money not necessarily being there. The Rio de Janeiro, the IOC pretty much having to pick up the tab for a lot of the Rio games because Brazil realized halfway through building it, oh, we're broke.
It's like, we don't have a single dollar to rub together. How did we get these games?
How did we get? Now they're all asking, how did they get them in the first place? And now they're turning around saying, okay, so the next cities are going to be places that we know have money, like China, Japan, the United States, and France.
Yeah.
So now the IOC is like, okay, we can't afford to, pay a massive amount of insurance because
the insurance costs alone were $7 million during the Sochi games. $7 million for the insurance alone. That has nothing to do with the travel accommodations or airfare, food, which they were paying all, but $7 million in insurance alone.
Right. And, the IOC does pick up, accommodations and food for a lot of athletes, especially from poor countries that, it's harder for them to send delegations. They want them to have that. But for a bunch of, athletes, just because they play hockey, no matter where they are, I understand the financial issue there. However, I'm of the belief that the goodwill that international hockey shows and having all of these players play for their respective teams. It's not like all these NHL players are playing for Team USA. I personally have always felt that your national identity should be where you get your paycheck.
Okay.
So so Lundqvist, you can play for Team USA as far as I'm concerned.
That would be wonderful. Might actually win a gold medal.
Yeah, and you have these. What was it? I think it was 10 where it was USA Canada in Canada.
Yes,
that was
2002. In the last 5 Olympic Games, Team USA has won silver medals in 2002 and 2010. That's it.
Even in the pro era of the Olympic, we've never won the gold. We only win when it's a bunch of college kids against Soviets.
Well, yeah, that's the argument for people who are.
And you have Kurt Russell as the coach.
Yeah, that's the argument for people who are saying, well, you don't need NHL athletes to be successful. I mean, there are great college programs, Boston College, Harvard, Minnesota, Wisconsin. The greatest moment in international hockey for the U.S. happened, the Miracle on Ice in 1980 with relative nobodies.
Yeah, and most of them went on to great NHL careers.
Or, opening Jiffy Lubes.
Oh, yeah, either or. But you have the sense of, I get it. I understand the con of it. But the pros and the athletes themselves, it's not like they're saying, I don't want to go. I don't want to be bothered. They really want it. If I'm not mistaken, you have... for a long period of time, Alex Ovechkin said, "Hey, if you're not going to let me play for Russia,
I'm just going to go.
I'm going to go. I'm going to play in the KHL."
Yeah.
And they basically told him how much money he'd be losing by doing that, and he's like, "I'll be good.
I'll be fine." All right, we got a ton of stuff to get to with Game Misconduct here on 96.3 The Hive. Alex Soberman and myself, but we're going to take it over to Will Yoon with our sports update.
NFL playoffs beginning in Foxborough as Tom Brady and the New England Patriots outgunned the Tennessee Titans 35-14. Brady throwing for 337 yards and 3 touchdowns. The Patriots will play in an NFL record 7th straight conference title game. Here's Brady after the game.
I just try to be consistent, show up to do the best I can do every week for the team, and regardless of whether I'm the worst quarterback in the league or the best quarterback in the league, or somewhere in between, it's just our job to do the best I can do for us every week.
From Foxborough, down 95 to Philadelphia as the Eagles beat the Atlanta Falcons 15-10 with a dramatic late goal line stand. A game that just saw 1 TD scored by either team was won on the foot of Jake Elliott and his 3 field goals. The Eagles advanced to the NFC Championship game for the first time since the 2009 playoffs. A shootout in the Steel City as the Jags go into Pittsburgh and defeat the Steelers 45-42. Ben Roethlisberger's 5 touchdowns would be no match for Jacksonville's running back Leonard Fournette, 25 carries and 3 TDs. This will mark Jags' 3rd AFC Championship game in franchise history. And finally, the Minnesota Vikings bring the heartbreak to Bourbon Street as Case Keenum completed a 61-yard touchdown pass to wideout Stephon Diggs with 4 seconds left in the game to beat the New Orleans Saints 29-24. This has been 96.3 The Hive Sports Update brought to you by Capital Wrestling. I'm Will Yoon. Back to you guys.
Thanks, Will Yoon with the sports update here. Yeah, great game we saw last night with the Vikes. Go Vikes, eh?
Ooh, yeah. That last 10, like if you had turned off the game before the last 10 seconds, you missed it.
Yeah,
you missed the whole thing.
Your bookie is somebody's bookies are not very happy. Not that we condone gambling in any way, shape, or form.
We do not condone anything of the sort. No. But you owe me $20.
Yeah, sorry about that. We'll do that after. Game Misconduct here on 96.3 The Hive. We're back. Game Misconduct talking about with Alex Soberman the NHL refusing to go to the Olympics in 2018. Winter Olympics, not going to have it. My question that I want to pose to you is the league, have they started to alienate their athletes? As we've seen, athletes want to go.
It was one of the coolest experiences I've ever been a part of as a player, and I think my family would agree with that. Just being able to be part of an Olympic team is something pretty special.
That's Alex Pietrangelo of the St. Louis Blues talking about what the experience is like. How awesome I mean, we're world traveled. We've traveled all over the world in a capacity, we're not sports athletes, but imagine being an Olympiad going to represent your country, getting essentially a free vacation. I mean, let's put it that way.
It's a vacation, but you can still find yourself being knocked around and
oh yeah.
Yeah. It's you still have to work.
You still have to work, yes.
You still have to do what it's like you're doing your job, you're just doing it for other people for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand, and I get the athlete's perspective. The NHL is a very international league. It's gotten more so in the past. It used to be just Americans and Canadians. Now it's Americans, Canadians. You have Swedes, Russians, Slovakians. From everywhere.
People from Rand McNally.
The Rand McNally people.
Where the hamburgers eat people.
The fact is, to me, yeah, I know what these players are feeling. I understand that this is, it's a blow to them. And I feel that they really should have made it maybe a bigger deal in their last CBA,
yeah, which is crazy because obviously it's going to come up. Now, the worst part for me is not being able to see guys who have excelled in international play only. Like, I mean, I'm a New York Rangers fan. Henrik Lundqvist. We've been to the Rangers been to the Stanley Cup. In 2012, but have been close with the Eastern Conference. This has kind of been the we're supposed to get here with this guy, but it hasn't happened. But he's achieved, a gold medal with Sweden. Alex Ovechkin, another guy who, after a heartbreaking international run for the Russians in Sochi, really wants to represent his country. You know, just seeing some of the greatest stars. The game has gotten so much faster, and to put that on the international ice, which is even bigger, you know, that's something that I want to see.
It's even bigger, and it's the style of play is different. No fighting, like you know.
Well, I mean, the league has kind of gone. The NHL has kind of gone to a more European style. There is less fighting in the league overall. The hitting is definitely way down.
And I think that actually has to do with the fact that there are more international players who are used to that style and used to not fighting, whereas when it was just Americans and Canadians.
Oh yeah,
yeah. What was it? Who's the hat trick?
Gordie Howe.
Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yeah, the Gordie Howe hat trick.
Yeah,
a fight, a goal, assist, and a fight.
Yeah. I get. You know, I really feel that the NHL is being short-sighted. I mean, for the short, yes, I understand the money. I understand the possibility of you're losing 2 weeks out of your season. Start the season a week earlier and end the season a week later. I mean, to me, seems like a no-brainer. But I know that there's no no-brainers when it comes to arenas that they don't own, that they have to, you know.
You've experienced that personally.
I've seen that when it happens. It's like, well, we know you want to extend your season by a week, but we have Disney on Ice coming. Well, add the two together. It seems to would work.
My question is, as we close out the show, what's the outcome here? What do you think winds up happening? Do you think the owners wind up winning? Do you think the IOC winds up winning? Do you think we wind up seeing the games in what's after South Korea? I believe Beijing.
I think I would be very surprised if the NHL, knowing that it is Beijing, doesn't at least make a bigger effort.
Absolutely, especially now that especially the NBA has a bigger market share than any other sport in China right now, which is a huge market for sports.
Right, and you're going to see the next Summer Games. It's actually interesting. It's like all Pacific for the next 10 years. You have South Korea this year, you have Tokyo in 2020, and then 2022 you have Beijing.
And 2026, Jupiter.
We'll
be there.
They're working on it.
We're working on it.
It's a little hot there, though. They have to work on it.
You know, we'll figure it
but
out.
I think that they're going to look at this. They're going to see that the play is going to be different. Unless you see some really good stories, I think the ratings are going to go down. So I think NBC, who's also like the side partner of the IOC in most things,
they're slowly trying to rebuild third world countries.
Yeah, well, the NBC has the rights to both the Olympics and the NHL.
Yes,
so they're going to be like,
we're losing a lot of money here
because it's a zero-sum game because no one's going to be watching hockey if they're watching the Olympics. No one's going to be watching the Olympics if they're watching hockey.
What else am I going to do during the Winter Olympics after 3 a.m. between tobogganing and figure skating?
Yeah.
I mean,
and the time difference is going to be very weird this time, too, because they're on the other side of the world.
Yeah.
I feel that this is going to be maybe a one-off gap, and I think that they're going to renegotiate this, especially if there's a new CBA.
If there's a new CBA, this will absolutely be in there. Like you said, the influx of more international players means the more importance that the Players Association is going to want to put on having their people be represented. And if you want to make the case for the league here, if you're the Players Association, speak to them in brass tacks. I don't think that the IOC is going to be able to just be like, we'll wait them out. That's not going to happen. They're going to have to give them something. Like you had suggested with the Summer Olympics, maybe doing that. That makes sense to me. It could almost be like the preseason for the NHL. It could lead into the preseason. That's fine.
Yeah,
I just think you're not going to get an owner to budge. 3 weeks in the middle of the season, your star player goes down, and we've seen teams who have, had great winning percentages, before the All-Star break, come back and their season totally falls apart. There is a certain level of fatigue there.
Right. And actually, I think I called the Olympic break, the years that they had it, I've called it the ultimate All-Star break.
The ultimate All-Star break,
It's everybody. It's like there's so much.
And then Latvia.
I don't know. We'll see what happens.
We'll figure it out. That's all the time we have for today, but join us next week when we talk about the NBA season coming up. We got a lot of stuff going on. Do
the Knicks still play?
Yeah, that's somewhere. They're in a parking garage, right now. They're not allowed to play on, Rucker Park. They're like, sub-Rucker.
Sucker.
Say that 3 times fast. We're getting out of here. This has been Game Misconduct on 96.3 The Hive.
You've been listening to Game Misconduct with Stephen James and Alex Soberman. I'm sorry.